Advisory Committee meeting of the Halton District School Board for Tuesday, April 7th, 2020. Given the COVID-19 pandemic, our school closures, and the need to practice social distancing, we are holding this meeting remotely through a teleconference. Please make sure that you have unmuted your line by pressing *6 on your phone, and after that point, you can use your handset's mute function to control your own phone's microphone. If you find that when you attempt to speak, your line is still muted, you can also try *7. Please make sure that your SEAC remote meeting page links page is open so that you can indicate to the Vice Chair, Joanna, if you wish to speak. We will also use this page for voting if required. Sometimes it is difficult to know when people are finished speaking. So if you are finished, please express that with a thank you or that's all I have or something to that effect. Also, please mention if you have a follow-up question. This meeting is being voice recorded. So I will ask the Vice Chair to start with a roll call to record who is in attendance.
Okay, thank you, Lou.
Okay.
So I will go through our list one by one, and we will be able that way to know who is on this phone call. So Diane Vanderbosch. You'll need to go off mute and say that you're present or you're here. Diane Vandenbosch. I believe she's online unless she disconnected accidentally, so we'll come back. Allison Brindle.
Present.
Judy Shields. James Baldwin.
Here.
Diane Miller.
Here.
Deidre Wu.
Yes, I'm here.
I barely heard something. Are you there, Deidre?
Yes, I'm present.
Okay. I'm having a very hard time hearing you. I don't know if that's the case for everybody. Petal Shaw. Petal Shaw. No. Lisa Cameron. You need to unmute. Lisa Cameron. No. Melissa Dockery. Melissa Dockery, are you on the line? Sophia Siddiqui? Sophia Siddiqui, are you on the line? We have regrets from Mike Brown. Lucille's on the line?
Yes.
Yeah. And now on to the trustees. Margot Shuttleworth.
Yes, I'm here.
Tracy L. Harrison.
Hello, everyone. I'm here.
Heather Garrett. Is Heather on the line? Okay. And we've got Mark.
Heather is here. Heather is here because she's been talking to me. So I just think she might be having problems, but she is online.
Having problems with mute? Okay.
Yeah.
And from staff, we have Mark Zoneveld, our superintendent. We have Sean Mark, principal of special education, and Lorna Goodrow, our administrator. So welcome, everybody. Thank you. And over to you, Lou.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. I would like to start by honoring the land. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis, from the Anishinaabe to the Atawandaron and the Haudenosaunee and the Métis. These lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather telephonically today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, water, plants, animals, ancestors that walk before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. I'd now like to hand it over to Joanna to ask for the approval of the agenda and the approval of the March minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Diane Van Bosch, would you like to move a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. And Diane Miller, would you like to second this motion? You need to go off mute.
I think just remind people it's *6 to get off mute.
Or *7.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Over to you, Lou.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 In favor?
Okay. The agenda has been approved. Now to move on to the approval of the March 3rd minutes.
So are there any errors or omissions? And if so, please your request to speak form and add your name to the speakers list. I see 2 names on that list, and I'm not sure if that was, I think those are from earlier, so I don't think they, just to verify, Deidre and James, was there anything that you had to ask around the minutes?
No,
No.
I didn't have anything to ask about the minutes, but I just wanted to remind the people on the call to either *6 or unmute, because I'm not hearing anyone. I'm hearing maybe 3 or 4 out of 8, queries. So somebody's not unmuting their phone or something, because I'm not hearing anyone at all. So just wanted to remind people to please unmute their phone if they were going to speak.
Thank you. And no, I didn't have anything that I wanted to add to the minutes. Okay. So I'll erase those names, and I'm not seeing any new names. So I'm going to ask Deidre Wu, would you like to move a motion to approve the minutes? No, sorry,
unfortunately, I wasn't there, so I can't.
That's
sorry.
That's right. I'm trying to figure out who was there based and reconcile with who's here on the phone. James, were you at the meeting last in March? I believe so, yes. Okay. James, would you like to move the motion to approve the minutes?
Are you asking me to make a motion?
Yeah, to approve the minutes of March meeting.
Sure, I will make a motion.
Okay, thank you.
Come on.
And Allison Brindle, would you like to second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Lou.
Okay, we are now up to the action items. Item 2.1, learning to support during the pandemic. And I'm now going to ask Mark to take over and speak.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to connect with you, even if it has to be virtually. And I know we all are concerned about our students with special needs. And well, all students, sure, I shouldn't just say our students with special needs, but all of our students and families. This is certainly a very concerning time for everyone in the world. And that we want to be able to focus tonight on specifically on students with special needs in Halton. And so that'll be the focus of our discussion tonight. So what I've sent to you in my superintendent's update yesterday, I sent this to you yesterday because I wanted to be as current as possible. This is, I'm sure you can appreciate, a rapidly changing situation, both in our country, our communities, and therefore also within our board and how we are supporting our students. I'm sure you know that yesterday was our first formal day of teaching and learning for our students, even though prior to yesterday we've had a lot of interaction between students and staff, whether they be teachers or administrators or our child and youth counselors, social workers, etc. There's been lots of back and forth, checking in on our students, making sure that they are connected and able to participate in the learning opportunities. And so a lot of that has gone on up until this time. So yesterday was our sort of official first day of instruction, but there's been lots going on before that. And as staff, we've certainly reflected back and said, wow, a month ago, who ever thought we'd be at this point? And so it's been quite the turnaround for us to move towards a totally virtual environment to engage our students in their learning. So the analogy's been used quite a few times, but I think it's still fitting that this is like us building the airplane in the air. And so we're learning lots as we go. We appreciate feedback because we want to do this better all the time. And we are going to make some mistakes along the way. However, we feel very confident that we can do this well for our students and our families and provide rich learning opportunities between now and whenever we return to school. I should mention that Director Miller, who's constantly, it seems, on conference calls and video conferencing at a provincial level, he was hoping to join us around 7:30 tonight. So we'll see if he jumps online at some point and may have a few words to say when he does. So, and I think I also want to reinforce how hard staff have been working. I really have to sing the praises of our staff at all levels in the board who have done so many things. There are lots of things happening behind the scenes that the parents don't see and we don't need to talk about. But everyone's been working really hard to figure out how to run a school board basically from their homes. And it's been challenging work, but also very rewarding because there's been lots of things that have gone very well. And, we're quite proud of our staff. So I extend that right from, and also all roles in our organization have been working very hard. So what I think I'll do, if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to do a quick run through of the things that I shared with you in my update and invite questions to help clarify and respond to other concerns you might have. So starting with the academic resources, before I go any further, maybe I'll ask Lucille and Joanna, do you want me to pause for questions along the way for each section, or would you like to wait to the end? I can do it either way.
Mark,
I
I
might
think
need-
let's pause at each section,
Okay.
and people are invited to go on the speakers list, and I'll check that and go through that, and then once it's exhausted, then you can move to your next item.
Okay, that works for me. So I'll start with academic. Okay, thanks, Lou. So starting with the academic resources, keeping in mind that our teachers and EAs and CERTs are the principal educators for our students with special needs. So we do lots of things in student services to support those educators. Some of our staff work with them directly, such as, for example, a speech pathologist or maybe an ABA facilitator, etc. But by and large, for our 11,000 plus students with an IEP, our classroom teams are those staff that support those students. And student services staff, their principal role is consultative in that they support those school teams. So in terms of that support, our staff have developed quite a few resources, pulled those together for those academic teams, and continually update those. It seems every day I look there are new resources that have been added to what's available for our staff. So that's constantly evolving, and we're doing that based on what we know is needed, but also what we hear in the feedback from staff about what would support them in their work. So those resources are there, and if you look down, I've put a screenshot of the resources how those resources are organized in. And sorry, I should pause for a minute and say we have two websites in essence in our board. One is the public facing, and one is the internal. And most big organizations have these. All school boards certainly do. So what I'm giving you a screenshot of is the internal facing, we call it My HDSB. Within there we have this set of buttons or tabs for staff, and within these, depending on the tab, are multiple resources within them. With many of them have more links that go deeper and deeper and provide more resources and links to fantastic resources out on the web. And so those are there for staff, and you can see how those are organized. We are planning to also post in the near future. It's basically ready. We just are waiting for it to be posted on the board webpage. Also have resources ready for parents that are, and I guess I'm jumping ahead here in my running through things. So those are the front buttons, I guess, for the academic resources that you see there. And we've also started a Twitter account with the Twitter addresses there for you as well, the feed, and because we want some daily ideas going out to parents and staff, which is being fed through that Twitter feed. So I think maybe I'll stop there about the resources for staff and see if there's any questions. I've got the response window on my screen here, Lou and Joanna, so I can see. I don't see any questions at this point.
That's right. Thank you.
Okay, so if you're okay, I'll continue.
Yep.
And so the parent resources, once again, the primary, we want the primary source for parents to be through staff. So because our staff know those students best in terms of their learning profiles, we're encouraging staff to draw from those resources that we've provided for them, which they can easily save as PDF docs, or just send the link, depending depending on what it is. Just send the link. Excuse me, and too much talking today, and be able to share those resources with parents. But once again, they can access resources through the Twitter feed and through, very soon, through the board webpage as well. We've seen some other great web pages out there, Teal and TDSB and others. We know there's some great models there, and there's lots of sharing going on between boards where we're saying, go ahead, use our material, use our processes. You know, we're all trying to avoid reinventing the wheel if we can. So we're, you know, it's great to have that network supporting each other across boards. So I'm looking to see if there's any speakers on parent resources. I don't see any right now. If it's okay, I'll keep going. Assistive technology. So we had a number of students take devices home, and mobility devices before the break, but we also had many that stayed. So we're really appreciative of administrators and CERTs and other staff that connected with families to find out what they needed at home and to get those organized for a very safe curbside pickup process that happened on Monday. We had all that organized about how to exchange those items and follow all the direction from public health about how to do that with social distancing and disinfecting and all that to happen. So I think we handed out over 2,000 devices to families. I say families because we didn't want students there picking these up on yesterday. So we had parents come, or if they could, or other family members come pick those up to support, you know, our students in their learning at home. So that was great that we did that. And once again, hats off to the school staff for making that happen. We're aware that there may be some other families that didn't, for whatever reason, their understanding of the opportunity or their opportunity to make the request didn't happen. And so if that's the case, if you're hearing that through your connections, those families should reach out to their administrators. And we'll see what the need is. We may organize another opportunity, but obviously that depends on where we're at with the expectations within our communities, you know, how much we need to stay at home, all that kind of thing. That may impact the opportunity for that. If it's needed, it may not be needed at all. So, but we really tried to get those devices out and out to our families. The other thing that's happening is that our IT staff are working to try to make sure that all families have an internet connection. And so they're working on that right now with, I know, Cogeco, and to see if there are other ways to do that. Cogeco right now serves, I think, 95% of residents in Halton. So it's great that we have one provider that does that. We know there are others out in more rural areas of the county that might need some other ways to do that, and we're looking into things like turbo sticks, which is basically a cell phone connection that goes into the side of your computer. I know we've ordered and have a number of USB sticks where we can send loaded up, you know, if you don't call them USB sticks or thumb drives or whatever you're familiar with. We can send those out to families with content if need be. If we absolutely had to, we might consider print. We'll see. But we're really trying to make sure that we connect with all students during this time, because we want to make sure that no one is left out of the learning opportunities. So I'm looking again to see if there's any speakers. I don't see any yet. Joanna or Lou, please stop me if I need to, and I'll keep going.
Yep, just keep going, Mark, because I don't see any names.
Okay. Mental health resources. This became apparent to us early on that we really need to be looking after the well-being of our students. And so pretty quickly we had resources available on our website for parents, and we also had resources out to our staff, knowing that as they were connecting with students and families, that they may become aware of concerns or needs for those students, and they need to be able to respond to those. So we created those resources for those students, and for those staff to be able to draw on when they're connecting with students and families. Also, if you click on that link in the message I sent, that link should take you right to the resources available on our board website for families. So that's there as well. And that will take me into our next two items, which are around social work and CYC services. I still don't see any hands or any people wanting to ask questions, so I'll keep going if that's okay.
Yep.
For social work and CYCs, I'm really quite pleased to say that our staff in those areas have basically moved from a face-to-face service model to a virtual model within a couple weeks. So this is, once again, really new for us, and there's lots of learning that's been going on. And I'm sure you can appreciate the staff have varying degrees of comfort with this, right? That are the learning and support is ongoing for us as well. And so now we're at the point where staff are connecting with all students who are on their caseloads before the break. So that's happening for both our social workers and CYCs. And keeping in mind, this is going to be a different service. It's going to look different, sound different, feel different. We've had our staff engaged in training, virtual training about how to deliver this service. We've had some experts help us with understanding what this will look like and how to ensure privacy and getting consent and all those kinds of things that are important. All that's happening through the work that's been going on. So I'm really pleased with what that's looking like. We're calling it phase one of this work in both of these areas, in that we're just working on their current caseloads, checking in with those students and the service we were providing before the break. Our next phase will be about new referrals, knowing that some of our students may not have the needs they did now as before the break, so there's less need maybe with the current caseload, but certainly some new needs have come up that need to be supported as well now that we are in the midst of this pandemic and the school closure. So those services are in process right now for our students. And I still don't see any hands.
Mark, I'm here.
Hey, Stuart, how are you?
Good, good.
Good. We said that you might be joining us. Do you have any words you want to share with SEAC?
Yeah, just not much, a few, but I just wanted to thank the members of SEAC for the work that you're doing and the support you're providing your organizations through this situation. It is greatly appreciated, and I think, the old adage that it takes a village has never been truer. And I wanted to assure the members of SEAC that we are fully aware of the greater challenges that many of our students with special needs will have around this online and distant learning that we're in the throes of and undergoing. And we realize that we will have challenges around equity of service for kids, equity of access for students, and this is no more true than that for our students with special needs. So, I ask that we have patience with us as we try to work through these. But when I say patience, I do not mean don't stop from identifying issues or concerns or problems that might arise because we are dealing with so many things we may not be aware of it. So I would ask CEAC to make sure that you stay in contact with Mark and Sean and let them know of what you've heard from the students and the associations that you represent, that, hey, this isn't working or that's not working, and we can try to change, and we can change in mid-travel there. So, like I say, I do thank you. I ask for your patience and flexibility, but I also ask you to stay in touch with us and let us know where feed us back to us what's not working and what is working, so that we can maybe expand it somewhere else and support more kids in a different way. And if you could somehow convey to your members that we're certainly understanding of the real stress that they may be feeling, which is exacerbated by this COVID-19 virus and the pandemic that we're in the midst of. But we certainly acknowledge and appreciate that for some families, it's even greater. And there may be financial woes, terrible financial woes, health worries, and all those other things. So we want to try to be part of the solution, and we're going to work very, very hard to be part of the solution to support families and students. Thank you, and I appreciate your help in helping us do that. And I think I'll just leave it at that, Mark.
Thanks, Stuart. I see there's a couple of speakers. I don't know if you want to stay on, Stuart, because I'm not sure if they've got questions here for you or for me.
Yeah, I'd gladly stay on.
Okay, so I'm seeing it's Joanna here. I'm seeing some names on the speaker list. So we'll start with Sophia, please. Remember to go off your mute.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I guess I had a question, and excuse me if you already answered this. I did join a bit later. My question was around special education programming for the kids that are at home. So I know the regular mainstream classes had Google Classroom set up. Things are ready to go, but a lot of the kids, the children that were on IEPs, teachers didn't really put up modified expectations for them across the board. So I've heard some that did get some modified working goals, and then what I'm hearing is just the Google Classroom that was already sort of set up for the regular kids, that was up and running, but there was not really a lot of modified expectations put out there for the kids that really need the support. So some of the kids that I represent to the Down Syndrome Association. So I guess my concerns were just around, I would have hoped that the CERTs and their teams would have gotten their stuff together with the same deadline that the other teachers had to get their things together. So we were sort of disappointed with that. It's a two-part question. Second part was a lot of our kids have really strong connections with their EAs. So what role are the EAs going to be playing? Will there at any point be maybe an audio note exchange or an opportunity for the kids to actually see them, maybe through Zoom? Like, I know that the other teachers are not doing Zoom video calls or anything, but I know with our kids, that would, really do wonders with respect to alleviating stress during this time, just to be able to see their EA, maybe have a conversation. So if somebody could just address that, that'd be great.
I think that's a Mark and a Sean response, so I'll leave it to them. Thanks for that question, Sophia.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first part of your question, Sophia, I'll say that our staff are working very hard to look at the IEPs for each student and provide accommodations and modifications as appropriate. That first sits with the school staff, the classroom teacher, to do that, and we're supporting them in that process. So it may not be happening as quickly as some families would like. I get that, but certainly it's important that we meet the needs of those students. So
yeah, and I think sorry, just to add to that was like I guess my concern was just that what was the messaging from the board to the spec ed staff, because I think had they known clearly, like, guys, when the regular teachers are up and running with their Google Classrooms, they should also be addressing the needs not just of the other kids in the class, but also the kids with any sort of accommodations or modifications, like even putting on like a video link or anything like that. I just think it's like it doesn't have to be difficult. I think parents recognize the challenge right now, but I think we have to really be cognizant, make an extra effort to be aware, and just to remind staff that, guys, these kids are the most vulnerable. We really need to program for them equally while we're programming for the rest of the class.
Sophia, let me speak first, and then Mark can fill in the details.
Sure.
I can assure you that the messaging was the same to our certs and to everybody else in the staff, students, staff who work with kids with special needs, is to be cognizant and aware of those special needs and modifications that they have normally done in class and so on. So we have messaged them to them.
Okay.
I'm not sure how it's played out, but the messaging was pretty clear. And I'll let Mark continue on from there.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree totally with Stuart, and we've said pretty clearly that staff are expected to look at the needs of each student, and so look at their IEPs and determine how those IEPs need to be modified or adjusted to meet the needs of students in a new virtual environment where their learning is going on at home. So, I encourage you to speak with your teacher, communicate with your teacher about that, because we know that you need support in what that looks like at home, knowing that you're really in reality the principal educator now, right, of your class. So,
right. And I think my concern was really, it wasn't like my son's teacher sort of like the Google Classroom was up and running for all the other kids, but there was no modification to anything for my son. And then I spoke with several other families who also said, we're experiencing similar things, and we would have thought that there would be some sort of connection. I guess also with respect to EAs, is there going to be any sort of connection there or an opportunity for the kids to connect with them?
Yes. So our EAs, we're really relying on to help with that connection home. We want to make sure that there is some regular interaction with all of our students, but more specifically with students with special needs, because we know that they need more of that regular direct connection. So we've asked staff to not be on a video connection with our kids one-on-one. We want there to be at least more than two people on the line. So our EAs at times will be that second person on the school board side. We may have the parent on the other end, which is great, or a group of students, but we want to make sure that we can have more than one staff member when necessary, so EAs can help provide that support, and also can be directly connecting with kids where they would have in the classroom, in the school. We can also have that connection with the student and the parent at home.
Right. So what would that look like? What medium would we be using to do that?
Yeah, so the format for that, Google Classroom, and specifically a Hangout, if you're familiar with Google, is, I know people are use things like FaceTime and Zoom and that. Google Hangout is I'll say the Google suite of tools, because there's quite a few of them. Is what we use as a school board, and we have an agreement with Google around privacy, which is really important. And so those are the tools we use. We use Google Hangout starting with our grade 3-4 classes. It's really a grade 4 and up tool.
Right.
Because we know that face-to-face connection is important there. But
That's
we've also
especially for our kids, right? They're like, because they've been out of
Yep.
school for so long.
Right.
Seeing that text document from their teacher is not going to be as meaningful for them as it would be to see face to face their EA or their teacher for a quick conversation, or
Right.
I think that'll do wonders. So I guess how would just so it's consistent across the board, would you be sending a message out to maybe your certs saying that this is something we're looking into? Maybe you can.
So are you talking for students above, like for grades 4 and up?
Yeah, grade four and up.
Yeah. So our staff know that. We've had, and if you can appreciate that the awareness, the skill, the comfort of working in a virtual environment really varies across our staff.
Absolutely.
I think we had, I know you understand as an educator yourself as well. So we've been offering lots of online training opportunities for staff. I think we had over 750 staff sign up for using Google Classroom last week. About how to set that up and how to, create your lessons, put your resources in there, how to set up all your communication with your students. For some of those staff are very familiar with that, and we have others for whom it's brand new.
Yeah,
and everyone
for sure.
in between, right?
But I know that there's several. Sorry, I keep cutting you off. My apologies. I know a lot of staff that are really comfortable with it, but I think some of them, and I'll speak specifically to my son's teacher. She's very savvy. She's a young teacher, tech savvy, but she's unsure about what she is allowed to do or not. So I don't think she realizes it's okay for her to have a Google Hangout conversation with the kids.
Sophia, can I jump in there a little bit?
Sure.
There is some somewhat of a confusion with our teachers around what they're allowed to do, allowed to say. In part, that's because ETFO had put out messaging, and the local unions had sent that messaging out, and it made it a little more ambiguous on what teachers could do, and so therefore some of them have got they're quite nervous about what they can or cannot do. However, we have I meet with our union leaders every week, and they are on board. They agree with what's going on and how we're trying to do it, and we're dealing with that. So I think that'll clear itself up in the next few days because, to be fair to the teachers, there seem to be mixed messages. In reality, they weren't, but they looked like mixed messages from the union.
I hear you. Yeah, because I think in Peel we were also confused about that, and they're trying to clarify. But I think with our more vulnerable population, with our kids, I feel like they're not going to be in touch with. They're not going to be able to keep up with the Google Classroom work per se. But having a Google Hangout maybe for 10 minutes every day with an EA or a teacher, whether they talk about academics or not, I think that'll bring a lot of normalcy and calm.
Yep, and Mark has recommended that to his staff, like on it with two people on the line, though, like either teacher and an EA or
absolutely,
two EAs.
Absolutely. I think that's great. Okay, so I just want to make sure that the messaging is out because I'm going to share this with my association, and then families often will say, well, the board said this, you told us this, but our school's saying no, they haven't heard this yet. So just want to make sure that it's consistent.
Well, and Sophia, if in my opening remarks there, I had said, we're a bit like building a plane while we're flying it, right?
Absolutely.
And so there's lots of stuff we don't know, and that's why it's important that we hear your voice and other voices as well as to what didn't happen, what's happening. Yeah, we want to hear the good stuff too, because then we can do better.
Well, you guys are great. I always say, Stuart, maybe you haven't heard us say this, but we really appreciate everything that Mark and the entire team does. They support us and they give us a platform, and that's why we're here to share. What's out there, what's happening in the field. We bring that to you, but absolutely. we appreciate what you guys do.
And vice versa. Thank you.
No problem.
And to add to that, Sophia, we send regular updates out to staff to help them understand the tools, the direction, the ways to support kids well. And and for example, we have every Tuesday afternoon we have virtual meetings with our administrators. We do an hour with elementary and the second hour with secondary, and we focus on specific topics. Today we focused on the continuity of learning, the kinds of things that we need staff to know about and focus on. And
great.
that goes on regularly. Our student services staff are connecting with groups of teachers. So where they would have, for example, we would have, I'll call them Hangouts because that's the tool that we use, video conferencing. We would have a Hangout for all the learning disabilities self-contained teachers, for example, and then and other Hangouts for life skills teachers and for certs, etc. So all of those are going on regularly to help those staff understand the tools, understand how to adjust their instruction and processes in virtual environments, right?
For sure. Yeah, it's a learning curve for everybody, absolutely. But I guess I just wanted you guys to know, like, what's happening in the field, where I think that some of that, our kids are being missed out a little bit just because our modifications and accommodations have not come through, whereas the regular programming for the mainstream classes, that it has happened, but I think our kids are kind of maybe slipping through the cracks. So I just wanted to let you know if there's some, maybe you can send out reminders to staff or whatnot. No,
that's helpful. Thank you. I've certainly I've heard both sides of it. I've heard some parents, that have reached out and said, "Wow, this teacher's really, jumped right on board and been able to support my child's specific needs right away." And I've heard that.
Yeah, so that's what I think. Yeah, and I've heard from some of our association too. A couple teachers, a couple of families said, "Yep, they did reach out. We've been able to do some video conferencing and that." Others have said there's nothing has been modified. So that's that's why I brought it up, just to make sure that there's some consistency, because then families are feeling some of them are feeling really stressed out right now.
Yeah. Thanks for that feedback.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing.
I think
thank you for that great discussion. And we will now move on to a question from Deidre. I'll ask everyone to please remember to put your phones on mute. Thank you. Deidre, over to you.
Hi there. Thank you. I just wanted to return back to Mark's report there and ask about, I see that we're touching on, of course, mental health resources, social work services, UIC, psychological services, and these are, I think, extremely important at this time, of course. And I wanted to note that I think this is probably one of the only services that will be kind of a window into a lot of people's family environments at this time, and that there may be things happening in the home that weren't happening before, or things that are maybe exacerbated, stressed, highly emotional. There could be health issues. There could be a lot of stuff going on. And I'm just wondering where these teachers may have the opportunity, unfortunately, to be the ones connecting with learners that are in these environments, whether or not they're being trained to notice, to hear, to see certain things, whether or not they have resources, whether or not there are new positions or training or anything that is happening at the school board level to provide supports and resources or more that might be needed to our learners that are in these environments at home for their families, because this could be the only window to the outside world, unfortunately, looking into their homes, or the only connection that they may have. And I think that's a big responsibility that we have.
Yeah, Deirdre, you've really nailed it, I think, with the realities for many, many of our families, that they are in a situation none of us could have anticipated. Well, none of us were talking about maybe a month ago. And so here we are in some very challenging situations. Stuart talked about the isolation, the financial strain that's on some families right now, the situations in terms of students being home constantly. We know that school is respite for a number of our families with students with high needs. And so very, very different circumstances. And so staff, when they make those connections with those families, are hearing and encountering all kinds of situations that they need help in responding to, for sure. So early on, we provided a bit of a tip sheet for staff that laid out the kinds of things they might be hearing, that they might be concerned about, and how they might respond. And also, if they felt that what the concern was something that required some other kind of response besides what they were saying or asking about, that certainly that they're encouraged to go to their support staff in their school, whether that be the CERT or the administrator or ESL teacher, whoever that might be, and if needed, to be able to tap into other resources in the community. So that on that tip sheet, it's a couple pages, there are community resources to tap into, such as Kids Help Phone or Reach Out Center for Kids, their support line, even CAS if necessary. Some of our food programs within the community, they've really rallied around trying to make sure that our families are well supported from a food sustenance standpoint. We have lots of donations coming in that way. All those kinds of things, we've tried to equip staff about how to respond and where to go if they need help with that. I'll say it's not perfect. None of this is. We're really, again, trying to learn as we go and build this as quickly and as well as we can. But we have been very conscious from the beginning that this is such a trying time for many families. And I'll be honest, many of our staff too.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Our board staff our board is the number one employer in Halton. So we have many of our staff who are impacted by this. And so we're supporting them at the same time as they are supporting others. And, so we're very conscious of that. And that's going to be part of our ongoing work, is that sort of a bit of care for the caregiver, right? That they're able to know how to respond to families along the way.
It's nice to see that it has such a big part of your report back to us. I think it's probably going to be a bigger or like an extreme part of the service that you'll be providing on top of everything else, unfortunately.
And it's going to, I think you're right, and that's going to escalate. Yeah. Right? Yeah. This is not a static situation. So,
And Deirdre, I would just add, I mean, we've been talking about our concerns for some time with our school administrators around those issues, and as Mark says, Mark's department's been great in sending out tip sheets, what to look for, but we know that there's situations that may be very, very difficult for children, very difficult for spouses, etc. We're taking it from a caring and empathetic viewpoint, but we're also reminding our teachers and sending out messages around their legal obligation to report. So, at this time we're putting more pressure on our teachers, but we feel we have to given the circumstances. And I think our teachers are receptive and understanding of that as well, in spite of their own stresses and challenges, as you pointed out and Mark pointed out. So.
Yeah, my son's own kindergarten kind of curriculum noted 2 sections about getting outside, and it part of that being part of his his day-to-day, but also I think part of that mental health side of things for him and for us. But the responsibility of the teachers that they take upon themselves as being that window into the house. There's just a lot going on, and so it falls on them, unfortunately, that they're part of that. So it's I'm probably the only window, right?
Yeah.
So,
what we're trying to do, Deirdre, is to support our teachers in that.
Yes.
And provide as much support for them, avenues and vehicles for them to ask questions to Mark's social workers, CYCs, to ask their principals and vice principals, to talk to Mark himself. So and any of the other superintendents. So as Mark said, it's not perfect, but if it was perfect, all the kids would be back in school and we'd all be
that's right.
happy. So
totally new for everyone. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very important point of discussion. Thank you for raising that, Deidre. Okay, moving on to a question from Diane Miller. Over to you, Diane.
Thank you. I just applaud everything that is being done and this discussion as well, some important topics coming up. I'm just wondering, there's a lot, as you said, you're building as you go, and a lot of efforts being put in to get devices to individuals and families that need them for that support. For those students who cannot learn online, what is the plan moving forward so that I know there's a couple that I know with learning disabilities that they're in tears because they just can't do the online learning. And so what is the plan moving forward, or what's being looked at for the ones who just have difficulty learning online? And part B of that is, you mentioned even the financial difficulties for some families, and I'm just wondering for the ones who may be looking at cutting off, for example, internet cost or cable cost during this time. So is there a sort of a backup for families that find themselves either in that situation or students who can't learn online?
Great questions, Diane. Thank you. So around those students who really struggle with the virtual environment, that's where we need to really partner with the parents. And this, I know, varies greatly household to household. I've heard of parents who are so skilled and engaged, and they are, sort of ahead of where the staff would be going. And then I've heard of parents who are both working frontline jobs and are just trying to do the best they can to look after their child, let alone do educational pieces. And there's some real challenges in the home, and so I know it's all over the map. But that partnership with the parents is so key here, where we help parents understand the learning needs of their child and how to meet those needs. This is, I won't kid you, this is challenging work for everyone. Mm-hmm. And we will build our skills in doing this and in turn help parents and staff get better at this. But this is challenging. We mm-hmm. are talking about things such as, there are already quite a few out there where we have sort of online video tutorial kinds of things that are there for parents already. But either finding more or creating more of those, we're constantly scouring the internet for great resources. There's literally millions out there, so trying to find the best things to do that. And also at the same time, build capacity. It's in sort of an overused term, but in those, sort of build the skills of parents and their ability to work with their children. So this is not work that's going to be linear, mm-hmm. or, we're going to have bumps along the way, but I'm confident that we can all grow and do this better. So that's a very broad answer because, it really varies with all the different exceptionalities. But that's sort of the broad answer to that. Around the internet connectivity, we have, I think I intimated this a little bit earlier, we are working with our service providers, the main one being Cogeco in Halton, where we are talking to them about an internet package of a sort that is a self-install for the family, where they basically get mailed or sent the hardware and can set that up themselves in their home, and they get get internet connectivity, just a basic package that we as a board pay for.
Okay.
So there's a very small number of families that need this in Halton, but we've said this is so important that we need to make sure we provide this, and so we're using obviously board funds. So the billing all comes to the board. It's not on the families, and it's not for anyone to drop their service and then pick this up. It's not free internet for those that don't need it. It's not an upgrade. It's for families that don't have service, and we want to make sure that they get it. So we are doing that in those cases where we know that the families don't have that connectivity. Where it's rural, it's out, some of our northern areas, Halton Hills, sort of north of there, that's still a challenge. And we're looking at other things where we can, other ways of extending service to those families, or we've even, I think I mentioned earlier, looked at loading up these storage drives, little USB sticks with content where we can send those to families. And we've even looked at enlisting our bus companies where they act as couriers, where they can take these things to families. They can also take devices, Chromebooks and other things to those families to make sure that they are connected and part of the learning.
So would somebody, Mark, if because of financial straits and people not being able to go to work now, if they were disconnecting and so it wasn't somebody that was previously maybe known to the board, would they contact the school board to let them know they've had to cut off their cable and their internet, or how would somebody let that be known to the school? Would it be through the teacher, or how would that work?
Yeah, they should start with the teacher, let the teacher know, who will then connect with the principal, and the principals are letting our IT services know that, because as we, you're making a good point, and we've said this is going to be a situation that's in flux for many of our families. So as this unfortunately will happen to some families, we want them to reach out to us and let us know. So if you can let your association members know that, please do, because we want to make sure our kids stay connected.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Diane, for those questions and concerns. And Mark, I believe you are still providing us with the rest of your update.
Thank you. So I think I'm at psychological services in my update. So our psych ed staff, I'm sure you can appreciate, this is one of the ones that is really different for those staff of how they deliver their service. They have been reaching out to schools. A fair bit of their work is consultative normally, and so it will continue that way, where they are discussing students and their needs and helping teachers with their learner profiles to help them, once again, modify the learning opportunities going on based on that student's needs. So our psych ed staff are doing that. They're also talking, they do what we call a no-name consultation with schools about students. If you can appreciate it in the privacy side of things, they can't talk about specific students without parent consent. So they do some no-name consultations with staff and provide support that way. And then they're also looking at how they can support schools and look at doing virtual assessments. I know that they're undergoing training with, I think it's with Telehealth Ontario. They're talking with some experts there about how they do virtual assessments. Once again, lots of learning going on for our staff to do this well. So, because what we'd like to do is make sure that we're continuing to deliver service and be able to move ahead with processes such as placement in in specific self-contained classes as needed. So we want to be able to continue that service because we know that eventually our schools will open again and our kids will be back. And so we want to try and not slow down the good work that happens there if we can. So that's for psychology. I don't see any more hands, so I'll keep going if that's okay. Speech and language service. Our speech paths are pretty involved with our primary level self-contained classes. So the communication classes, the kindergarten early language class, the early language phonemic awareness class, those programs, they are continuing to work with those educators and help them best meet the needs of those students at home. And they will be part of those virtual connections with those students and families as well. So that kind of, again, adjustment in service and learning of our staff how to do that has been ongoing, and those connections are already happening. I don't know if any of you are familiar with those programs or directly with those families, but that is ongoing. And once again, all of these staff are part of the resources that we're pulling together for teachers on the one side and for families on the other. So those staff are doing those things as well. I don't see any hands or speakers, so I will keep going if that's okay and touch on our ABA services. Similar to our speech language service in that they are working with existing caseloads of students, consulting with staff around those needs. Students with autism who we're getting support through the ABA facilitators. Again, looking at virtual support and how we can do that. It's again a learning curve, so that's going on. Our processes that we do in terms of, you guys are quite familiar with school resource team and the identification, placement, and review process. We have been adjusting those processes. We actually just sent out guidelines today to schools about how to run virtual SRTs and IPSCs. And so those have gone out. I know schools, some of them have SRTs scheduled for this week, I believe. And in all of these, we want to make sure that we're including parents, as much as they want to be involved, certainly encouraging that. And so we're facilitating that starting this week. Parents that might be concerned about the self-contained placement process for the fall, that is continuing. The only holdup that might happen there is if parents decide that they need to visit the school or the class to help finalize their decision. So if that's the case, then two things might happen. Our staff right now are working on developing virtual tours. It may not necessarily be of the exact school where their child might attend, but we have lots of pictures and other documentation of resources and activities that go on in those classes. So we're developing these virtual tours of, for example, a learning disabilities class for parents to help them see this is what a typical class looks like and the kinds of activities that go on there. So that's one way that might help parents finalize their decision. But the other opportunity that may need to happen is that the decision is deferred until it's an actual live process is possible. So those two things are both options there. And I don't see other hands, so I'll keep going. Our care, treatment, and custody and corrections programs are continuing in Section 23 classes. All those teachers and classes are adjusting to this virtual model. That includes REACH and CAPAS. which are both programs that run in Oakville Trafalgar Hospital for students with both inpatient and outpatient needs around mental health, and for some students, potential suicidal conditions. So those are continuing, those models. Some of you may not know that our Tragic Events Response Team, TERT, is part of the work that we do in student services. And so that team responds to tragic events such as the passing of a student or a student's family member or a staff member, tragic accidents involving our school communities, those kinds of things. So normally those teams respond to the school. That they could be an event that happened one day. Our team shows up the next morning to support the entire school around that unfortunate situation, and composed of administrators and CYCs and social workers, etc., all come and rally around that school. Obviously, these events will still continue to happen, unfortunately, and so we are designing a virtual model where we can do that. And our mental health lead, Michelle Bates, who coordinates that, who you've met, she is working with other boards to design that kind of new model. So I guess I'll finally say, schools are continuing with their problem-solving process. I was invited to be part of a school team's, what we call a school team. It's when schools are coming together to first talk about the needs of students beyond the classroom. I was invited to be part of one of those yesterday morning, and just touching base with staff and appreciating the work that they were doing and answering their questions. So those teams and that problem solving is continuing. There's so much connection. I talked to lots of principals who just say that I spend my whole day on video conferences and telephone calls, connecting with staff and families, and figuring out how do we continue to do that, to do our work. And so that's continuing for students with special needs as well. And it's, once again, a learning process for us. So I think I'll stop there and see if there are any questions specifically or more broadly. I've done lots of talking.
I don't see any names, Mark.
Okay, so thank you, Mark, for this very thorough update. I think I echo everybody's sentiment when I say that it is clear that our staff and senior admin are doing a tremendous amount of work to help transition all of our students onto online continuation of learning, and that this involves a great deal of initiatives and problem solving and many special considerations. So thank you for all the work that's being done. Your ESO report provides a great deal of information that can be shared through our SEAC members with their associations. Okay, over to you, Lou.
Mark, I'm going to have to go. I've got a labor call that I got to get on.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everybody. Stay safe.
Stuart.
Okay, well, I think that we had quite a lot of information. So I think we've covered 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. So I'd like to go to 2.4 on the agenda.
Sorry, Lou.
Yeah,
Lou. I just
yes.
I just want to check in if any of the members have any questions that require further clarification on the answers that were provided on the Q&A document, and if not, then we can proceed. Well, Joanna, I agree with you. So over to the folks in the meeting. Are there any more issues requiring clarification? Okay, so I see there's a question from Margot. Margot, yeah.
Hi there. Yeah, so I'm actually asking a question. It's not for the CX board. It's actually for the members of LDAHH concerning the special education review that came to us a couple months ago. It's come in front of the Board of Trustees, and I know you had abstained from voting because you hadn't had a chance to look over it. And I'm just wondering or wanting to make sure that we as trustees have any information to further our sort of understanding of where you stand on this document. I don't know if you've had time to look at it. So I guess that would be for Diane and Allison.
Hi, Diane.
Allison,
sorry, I'm here. I'm here,
okay,
Diane.
Allison,
You want me to take it? Okay.
Just
all right.
please.
Okay. So my understanding of the special education review is that it is a process that reviews issues, gaps, changes that we need to be made to the special education plan. And from that review, the special education plan is built. That's my understanding. And please correct me if I'm wrong. If that is the case, LDAHH still sees gaps in service, particularly for students of grade 2 and 3 and some of the higher grades. And our mandate is to support or to advocate for support for all age groups. And until that is done, we would not be able to support the special education plan and therefore would not be able to support the special education review that leads into the plan. We do recognize...
Can I follow Allison?
Yep.
So can I ask a question? So with that then, so because I know, and this is something that I struggle with, is that I know for the last time around that you had to produce a minority report because you did not support the spec ed plan. So what I would like to know is, I'm trying to get my head around the idea of what can we do to make it better. So although you might not, what I want to know is, where is it, like you're talking of gaps, but
yes.
What I would hope where we could come to is, although it still might not be perfect, I'd like to be seen to be trying to fix it. Right?
Yes, yes. And I would like to say that we do recognize and do appreciate the efforts that have been made, and that would be in our report about the sincere efforts and the new programs that have been put in place that are setting the district school board on the right path towards getting to a point that we can approve it. But at the moment, there is still no programming for grades 2 and 3. Until then, the self-contained classrooms come in, and the supports at the higher level are not at the level we would like to see. And Diane, do you want to add to that?
Just to add that I know we've been given an answer that at the higher level, at the secondary level, because we have 3 different levels in programming, that apparently meets the needs of our learners, and we're not convinced that it does. So we want to see more support at the secondary level than just the 3 different levels of programming. That's all I want to say.
So, Margot, does that answer your question? I think the board is moving in a much better direction, but particularly in grades 2 and 3, there needs to be something there to address the gap. Once a child has got through grade 1, they suddenly no longer have supports until they get to the age where they could be in a self-contained classroom. And as we know, early intervention is the most effective. So losing them at that stage is something that we specifically need to address.
Okay.
So while progress is being made, there are some key issues that still need to be addressed that would stop us from approving the plan in full.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And we'll just circle back to agenda item 2.2, and it's the online Q&A document that was shared. I just want to confirm and see whether anybody has any questions requiring clarification on any of the answers that were provided to any of the questions that were posed. If you want to take the next couple of minutes to quickly scan through and add your name to the speakers list, then we'll know if there's any required conversation about this. And if not, then Lou will be able to proceed to agenda item 2.4. So I'm going to check the request to speak list. And I'm not seeing any names. So I take it that it is safe for us to proceed. Okay, over to you, Lou.
Thanks to Anne. So 2.4 is future meeting times. And given all the changes that we've been going through, we thought we would like to confirm that our usual meeting time of the first Tuesday of the month at 7 is still suitable for you all. You know, given all these changes, or is there perhaps, a better time, with school closures and working from home and different pressures on members now?
So, Lou, if I can jump in, as an example today, trustees who would normally hold committee of the whole at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night, once or twice a month, they met at 3 o'clock this afternoon because that better suited, once again, their own circumstances and knowing that with students home that things are looking very different in our homes.
It was also to respect the beginning of Passover tomorrow.
Right. So so the question is here is what best meets the needs of SEAC members? Is it still in the evening or during the day, or that's what's open for discussion?
And Mark, we'll just check in with you and see whether there is a preferred day and time for you, given that your workload and how things look for you also has shifted a bit.
I see Deirdre as a speaker.
Hi.
Okay,
thank you. I was just going to say that it's busy in my house. I don't know if anybody else is quite busy, but now I have 2 young children home and I'm still working and my husband's still working. So I'm still okay with the first Tuesday at 7 o'clock. It's actually busier because now all my days run together and all the hours run together. So that still works for me, but I'm open to suggestions as well. But evening is still okay by me because if I have to do it during the day, my children will be running around. Just a heads up.
Okay, so maybe the best way to proceed is to take a vote whether we will continue with our first Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m., at which time I'll ask you to go to the vote, I want to vote tab of the form, where you can indicate yes, that first Tuesday at 7 is still good for you. And then based on those results, we will have to figure out what some of the other options might be. So I will now check that.
Sorry, so when it says I'm in favor of the current resolution, does that mean we want to stay with the evening time?
Yes, that we want to stay with the first Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with Deirdre too. With young kids at home, I prefer evening as well. But okay, I'll put that in there. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to
I mean, we can. I also would like to keep it at in the evening at 7. But I think that this is an item that we can perhaps revisit again. Once, if we have more members the next time round.
Okay, I'm just confirming that everybody who's present has voted.
Sorry, Joanna, so do we want to go ahead and vote, or do we want to wait until there's more members here next time around?
No, because we need to decide when the meeting for next month will be planned. So It looks like everybody is in favor. Lou, you can add your name to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I believe everybody who is here has voted in favor of having our next meeting the first Tuesday of May at 7 p.m. as per our usual schedule. If I am wrong and you're on the line and you do not support that, I guess it carries as a majority anyway. So we will proceed with the first Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m.
Thank you, everyone. The next is the CX discussion period. And I'm now asking members if there's anything else that we should be discussing or if you would like to add at this time.
May I say something quickly?
Yep.
Hi, it's Heather. I just want to give kudos to the staff and the admin of HDSB. This is only day 2 of continuing learning, and they have pulled rabbits out of hats, literally. And I'm just amazed, and I'm so impressed, and I'm proud to be part of HDSB. That's it.
That's good. Thank you.
I see there's a question from Deirdre.
Hi there. Yes, I just wanted to ask if school enrollment for parents, are they able to just contact their local school, or who are they getting in touch with for maybe enrollment for next year or with questions? Is anybody answering phones, or who do they talk to?
Thanks, Deirdre. Yeah, all those processes are continuing. So schools should connect with parents should connect with schools. Contact information is on the websites. And we're still doing, we've redesigned our registration process because we know we need to Halton, with our growth, we need to continue to do that registration intake for the fall. And so even though we might not be able to directly see, a birth certificate or a proof of residence, we're taking registrations, and then we'll ask for those documents once we're able to do the face-to-face with families again. So all those things continue, and families should connect with schools through the contact info on the websites.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. And I see a question from James.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's possible we could have the next meeting using Zoom or some kind of visual technology. I'm just wondering if I could, make a suggestion, because I'm finding kind of difficult. Sometimes I'm hearing a lot of background, which sort of interferes with my cochlear implant. And I'm also finding it sometimes difficult following what people are saying. And I would find it much more easier if I could read the lips and see what people are, see the people that are talking. So I'm just wondering if I could put that out there. I'm done.
Mark, would you like to answer that question? Is that a
Sure.
possibility?
Yeah, we'll look into that, James. We don't use Zoom as a board because it isn't a secure platform, and this is sort of the one situation, or one of the few situations where we're talking about things that may not potentially include private information. So for example, we don't use this when talking with parents or between staff about students because, Zoom is easily, you probably have seen some of the things online in the news about how easily Zoom can be hacked. And so, we don't use it for that purpose. But there are certainly a number of platforms out there. And this one we've gone with because this is how trustees are conducting board meetings now, is through this same format. But I appreciate your, the limitations of this, James, and the need that you're identifying. I think that's important for us to hear. So let us take this away and talk about this, and we'll let you know.
Okay, I've heard that before, but from my understanding, if you do upgrade, the first thing is that all Zoom meetings are password protected. The only security breach I can imagine, and I've discussed this with several colleagues, is that somebody is videotaping the conference, but I think that could be a problem with almost any platform you do choose if somebody wants to videotape what's being said. But I believe that if you upgrade to a higher platform of Zoom, which I think you might need to do anyway because these meetings run longer than an hour, that they're pretty secure as far as my understanding is, because we had that upgrade and we had some assurances that it's working on an extra secure line. So I know I've heard that argument about Zoom being easily cracked and not secure, but I've also heard the counter argument to that. So anyway, I don't really care about whether it's Zoom or not, but it is just one platform that I'm slightly familiar with. I'm just learning it myself. I've only been learning it for the last couple of weeks, and it seems to be okay so far. I'm done.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, we will certainly look into it, James. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any names on the speakers list, so over to you, Lou.
Okay. I think that since Mark provided such a detailed update, we will consider that as item 4.1, Superintendent's Report. And so we now move on to association reports.
Okay, so I'll remind everyone to please use your request to speak form, and I will monitor that and call out your name. All right, we'll start with Allison.
Hello. So just to let everybody know, the LDAHH is now offering online e-tutoring for students with learning disabilities and ADHD. It's to provide content support for work that's going on in the classroom for those students who may need additional support to overcome their learning disabilities. We also have moved our Alton Gillingham multisensory program online to allow us to continue to offer remedial support for children with more severe learning disabilities. And finally, we are running an online multisensory keyboard keyboarding program using Zoom technology where the tutor will actually be monitoring how the student is typing as well as student undertaking the typing class at the same time. So all trying to embrace the technology, but we continue to offer services for students who may need that support in these trying times. And I'm done.
Okay, is there anybody else who would like to provide their association update? Okay, I have a question for Allison. Allison, can you tell us who would qualify for these online tutorials, and how would families and students go about registering for that?
We had just have to go onto our website, www.ldahh.ca, and then there's an online application form, and it is a fee-for-service program because we don't receive any government funding. But we are doing it one-on-one, two-on-one, or three-on-one in ways to reduce the cost for families. And it's also all the tutoring is being done by Ontario certified teachers to, again, support the learning that's going on in the classroom. So just basically go online and you can sign up and somebody will reach out and contact you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands up for association reports, so over to you, Lou.
Okay. I'm now going to move to item 4.3, which is the trustee report.
Hi, that's me. That's Margot here. So I'm just going to give you the trustee report. Okay, so as it's been said, and as you gathered from this teleconference, we as trustees have been meeting by teleconference weekly, actually, for the past 3 weeks, and receive COVID updates each time we meet. That's kind of the main focus of our meetings. Some of the items of interest for SEAC around the concerns with the COVID outbreak are that all field trips, special events, etc. are canceled. So all large events are canceled, so there will be no graduations. Learn from Home officially rolled out this week. And it is important to recognize, as Heather already pointed out, how hard our teachers have been working to create teaching and learning opportunities with varieties of representation, be it online or through work sent home to the students. Schools made available their equipment for the students to learn more effectively at home. And yesterday, 1,500 technology devices were made available for students to pick up on curbside. Lastly, the recent cutbacks to essential services has halted some buildings of new schools. So that's impacted Milton, North Oakville, and Nelson. We're hoping it's sort of a day-by-day situation right now, but we're hoping for some more clarity in the future. But that will impact the transition of students from Robert Bateman to Nelson. So that's really it for the trustee report from me.
Thank you, Margot.
You're welcome.
Okay, and are there any other committee reports at this time? Again, please use your request to speak form, which I will monitor. I take it that many, if not most, committee have ceased for the moment, given that staff are really busy working through and problem solving and working on delivering good opportunities, good learning opportunities to our students through online education. So I know the Accessibility Coordinating Committee was to meet, I think, sometime last week. And I don't believe that meeting happened, but if I'm wrong or if there are any updates, then I'll ask Sean March to chime in. And otherwise, I'm not seeing anybody on the speakers list, and I'm not seeing Mark's name either. So I believe there's nothing to report.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we are now up to our last agenda item, if there are no committee reports. I just want to ask, are any of these committees perhaps meeting through video or through teleconferencing or anything that we know of?
I do know that the integration committees, there are subcommittees as far as the Nelson Bateman Integration Committee that are meeting behind the scenes, I think, and there will be an update at the next board meeting from Superintendent Blackwell.
Okay, thank you. Well, the next... Mark, did you have something to add?
Just to reiterate that all of the intent is that these move ahead as best we can, but you're right that our focus has really been on making sure that we're supporting the learning of our kids right now in this new environment. So when they can resume, they will, and it may be through video conference, teleconference, whatever means, but we have to, they're on pause at this point.
Thank you. With item 5.0 regarding the next agenda, are there any new requests for topics for our future agendas? If you'll recall, Lorna is keeping a list of agenda topics, and we will need to determine which topics can proceed during the time of the pandemic and which we need to defer. So please, if you have any input on this matter, use your request to speak form.
Okay, so if you have any suggestions for our future agenda items, please use your speakers list form, add your name to the list. And I'm not seeing any names popping up. So over to you.
Joanna, if I can jump in?
Yep.
Thanks. So Roxana Nagoy, our superintendent of business, has asked if she can come to our, well, I say come, join us online for our next meeting and talk about the budget for next year. So I think that that would be timely for us because I know we want SEAC to have input around what the budget will look like, and if there are any changes, additions, deletions, etc., for students that affect our students with special needs, that you want to have input on that. So that would be timely. We're hoping that we receive the budget breakdown and amounts from the province by the end of this month. I'm sure you can appreciate that everything is in a state of flux, and that may not happen, but we'll see. But I don't want it to wait until June because that's really too late for SEAC input. So if we could set aside a good chunk of time for that in our next meeting, I think is important.
Mark, it's Joanna here, and I would just ask that once Roxana is ready, if she could please share her presentation with SEAC well in advance so everybody can have a read and maybe come up with any questions they have in advance of the meeting, because it will be challenging to do that through a teleconference as it is.
For sure. I'll ask her for that. Thanks.
Okay, and I'm not seeing any names, so over to you, Lou.
Well, we've exhausted our agenda, so I think I now call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for calling in, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.